This video was published by mbkpinternational.com. This video we're going to talk about our XPC19 Pro paper cutter. And if you're having trouble with your paper push, sometimes there's a clamp back here, and if it comes loose, sometimes this whole shaft can come forward. And I loosen that clamp just to, and it comes forward like this. And it comes forward all the way. It will fall. The back end will fall out of the back, and I'll show you. And so the first thing you want to do is see how that fell out. There's a bearing in there, a bearing hole, and this shaft goes right in. This screw rod shaft goes right in that hole, and sometimes it will come out of it. And you got to get that reset. And you can just grab this whole thing right here and just slide it forward, and then it went in. Sometimes the bearing comes here. I'm going to pull it out again. So see, now the bearing's in it there. So it could have the bearing on it, or the bearing might be in there. So now the bearing's out, and I'm going to just put the whole thing back in the hole, and you can see it all flush in the hole there now. And now this paper push is firm. You will have to take out these back tables, at least one side. Might be better to take out both, but we do have videos for removing the back table. I already got them off for this video to make it quicker. Okay, I already got it forward now. Now we got to get this clamp forward. See, right here. See this clamp? It's loose, and there's the bearing here. You can put some grease in these bearings why it's like this. If yours came off like that, just grease it a little bit just for good measure. And then you're basically just going to pinch this together. And now there's no play in it. And basically there's a 3mm hex on top and bottom of this clamp, and you just need to tighten them down. Now there is sometimes I've seen this stuff, when this thing comes forward hard, you could break this belt, so you need to replace this belt, and all you do there is loosen these four, and you can lift up on this motor to put a new belt on it, or the belt could have came off. And then then you push down the motor and tighten these up. If that came off, you gotta make sure your belt's on. But once this is pushed all the way back, we seat it the back end in there to make sure it's seated. Now we got this clamp. But I've seen it when they come forward hard, it could jam this clamp back further, and you can't squeeze it together because it's jammed back here. So if it's like that, if you can't squeeze it together to where it's nice and tight and no play with your fingers like that, you're basically just doing this and you're just squeezing it together. If you can't get it, if it's stuck further back and you can't get that play of it, what you're going to need to do is come to the other side. Again, obviously you're going to have these tables off. You probably need to be over here. And right there, as you can see it right there, I don't know, hopefully you can, but there's the back of that clamp I just showed you. And you're just basically going to take a long screwdriver like this and put it on it. If it's stuck, if you can't pinch it together with your fingers, and then just tap it, like make sure it's tapped all the way forward, and just you can go to the other side and do the same thing until it pops free, because they'll get jammed if it comes out hard and gets stuck. So if you can't get it with your fingers, you got to do that, and then once you get it broke free and forward, then you can just make sure it's tight here. Then you take your 3mm hex wrench, whatever I did with that. Let me pause it here while I find my 3mm. Okay, I got 3mm hex wrench, and basically you're just going to come in here and you might have to have it a little bit to the side like it. You can turn this by hand. Make sure this is unplugged when you're into this at all. Forgot to mention that at the beginning of the video, but make sure you unplug this from power. You don't want to drop any tools in here and hit this board and it'll fry it. You can't really do that straight up because this gets in the way, so you can do it at a little bit of an angle usually, and you're just going to tighten this down here while you're squeezing on it with the other hand or having somebody else squeeze. I purposely loosen this to demonstrate what could happen here if these come loose. I'm going to keep going in until I get this tight. Okay, it's tight now. I'm just going to kind of hold this and make sure it's nice and snug tight. Do another one. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to rotate it around 180 degrees to the other side, and there's another one on that side. And you shouldn't have to clamp anymore if you got it the first time, because there's one already tight, but you want to get both sides tight. Okay, they're both tight now. And now there's no more play in it. And it's seated, and we got it seated in the back good. You can see that. Right there, it's seated in good. It's not, you can move it, you can try to twist, you can move this paper clamp, make sure it's not popping out of there or anything. You just make sure you get it seated good before you come to the front. And that's basically it. You can turn it by hand now. You can just go like this or like that, and you can watch the paper push. Just make sure it's traveling good, back and forth. And it should be easy to turn when it's unplugged. If it's plugged in, you're not going to be able to turn it, so make sure it's unplugged. And while you got it here, you might as well get these front ones so it doesn't, because I've seen this one come loose too on the front, and then it just spins around. The paper push don't move, so you make sure these are tight too. This is a 2.5, I believe. So you tighten that, make sure that's nice and tight, and you got another one there 90 degrees away from it. Make sure that's nice and tight, and then you might as well get this one. There's on this clamp here, same thing. There's one right there. Make sure that's nice and tight. Spin around 90 degrees, and there's the other one. And make sure that's nice and tight. Make sure your belt's nice and tight. If it's not, you can push down and you can loosen these, push down on that. So that's your clamp, and then retighten them. These are usually just snug tight. And that's basically it. Just make sure everything's snug tight in here. Everything's good now. You should be able, it moves freely by hand. There's no problem moving it by hand nice and freely. You can plug it, you can close this up, plug it in, and see if it moves good. You can do it without your tables on, and just to make sure it moves freely. This will wobble a little bit while it moves, but it ain't gonna hurt it. You can just move it back and forth. Just make sure you don't hit this or anything like that, because sometimes it wobbles and it comes in, hits that, because the tables aren't keeping it straight. It could start wobbling and hit that if you go forward. So just be a little careful with that. That's basically it. This video was published by mbkpinternational.com.